Welcome, welcome. Listeners, we welcome you. We salute your courage and your sacrifice for taking the time to listen to our podcast, and we wish you happy adaptation games, and may the odds be ever in your favor. I'm Kels.
And I'm Ash.
And we are the Adaptation Games, a Hunger Games podcast where we break down the Hunger Games films beat by beat and analyze them along with the book to understand themes, characters, and to determine just how good an adaptation these movies are. Join us this week as we discuss Cinna, the tribute parade, meeting Snow, broadcast operations, and so much more. Did you like my little bit of a different intro this week to honor the first time we get to see President Snow speak?
I did. That was very fun. I love his, we honor your sacrifice. It's like, well, I was kind of wondering where you were going with that.
Yeah. I don't have as beautiful of a voice as Donald Sutherland, but I mean, I'd try my best. Yeah.
I know. Well, we're just going to slowly sacrifice our listeners for fun, too.
Yeah, honestly, we want to be more like Snow, right? Isn't that what we want?
Yeah, that's
maybe more like Donald Sutherland than Snow.
That's the what you should take away from the Hunger Games is be more like Snow, and you too will succeed.
But how are you doing this week?
Doing good. I just reached. I got this fun new fountain pen recently. I've never had a fountain pen before, but I've reached the end of my second cartridge, and now I'm scared. So there's different types of fountain pens. The one I got this like change cartridge where it's a piston filler, so you can fill it up with different inks instead of it just being like a cartridge. And I'm a little scared. After this, I am going to immediately try to change it, and I'm a little worried I'm going to go to work with very purple hands tomorrow because I'm changing it with a purple ink.
I can't wait. Better send me pictures.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I need to see it.
But yeah, it's been very fun.
I didn't do anything as exciting as that this week.
Oh, that's okay.
Just Mochi and I attempted to go on walks, sort of, at the park.
Mochi has a lot
scary
of
children were there.
Oh,
she does.
I mean, children are scary. That's actually what you should take away from this book is that children are very scary.
Yeah, you're right. They could kill you if they really wanted to.
You never know.
That's how Mochi feels about every single one of them. So
absolutely, they're fully capable.
Yeah. But speaking of last week, we ended on Katniss realizing that Peeta is out to kill her. I've got to read the quote again because it just gets me every time. He hasn't accepted his death. He is already fighting hard to stay alive, which also means that kind Peeta Malark, the boy who gave me the bread, is fighting hard to kill me. So Katniss gets it.
Yeah. Katniss is 100% right and understands
everything at all times. Yeah. But what we covered was definitely her inability to understand anything Peeta's ever thought. We talked about Haymitch and his alcoholism and so much more last week. It was crazy. There was so much to fit in. I feel like we missed a lot when I was re-listening to it just because there was so much to cover.
Yeah. And learning as we go on how to break these things down into episodes, really.
Yeah.
Usually I'm used to essays.
Yeah. But Katniss's exposition is just, she does give a lot more detail, I think, than we give her credit for.
Absolutely.
As a fandom. So definitely there was a lot last time where we were in her head. I will say I was rereading the script and there were some pretty big differences that kind of matched a lot with what we were talking about last week about trying to make Haymitch a lot more likable. They make him a lot more unlikable in the script version because they're trying to make him so much more like the book version. Like he still punches Peeta in the script version. And Effie ends up getting like a lot of his lines because they're like he's too drunk to come participate. So you get a lot less kind Haymitch, not even kind Haymitch, just a Haymitch that's capable of helping out Peeta and Katniss.
Yeah.
And I think people just wouldn't have been able to like him if he had punched Peeta in the face.
No.
No.
That's, it's like one thing reading about it in a book, but visually watching that, I don't think that would have been very fun.
Yeah. The other person that they make, we're going to get a lot of this time around, but they make additionally really cruel is Seneca Crane in the script. He is still in there, even though they didn't have him at the beginning of the script. And and he's much more cruel and like super cold. I really like how they leaned really hard into this version of like sort of an ignorance is bliss, more FE style, really bought into the propaganda Seneca Crane instead. But we're probably going to cover the script in like a week or two because we're coming up to the end of part one here. So we'll get to cover all of that at a different point.
I'm so excited because the script is so different.
Yeah. I can't wait to read through the whole thing again now that we've been going through this bit by bit because it's been really interesting.
Yeah. And I think that will be, I think, my first proper script that I've read.
Oh, really?
Like, actually, yeah. Never looked at scripts in school.
Yeah. I did take a script writing class, so I did get to see how those are, and I really do enjoy like reading through scripts. Just when I get the chance, like Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is one of our favorite movies to have come out recently. I've read that script, and that's really interesting. So if you're into it, you should just read scripts randomly. Everybody should. It's a great way to learn how to break down scenes and things like that.
Amazing. I love it.
Yeah. Um, so before we hop in, any other thoughts from last week? Because we're gonna really get into it here in just a minute.
Oh, no other thoughts from last week. I'm very excited for this week. This is some of my, as we start to pick up, it starts to get into some of the stuff that I really love. I love the capital stuff where the difference between what we see in the district and now Katniss is thrown into the lion's den. We are in it.
Yes, we are so in it, and we're so in it that we're starting with a panning shot of the Capitol, which is just overlooking something that is like super concrete. It's a lot brighter though than what we saw in the district, which was really gray and desaturated. This is still desaturated in that there's just not a lot of color, but that's because all the Capitol citizens are super colorful. But we get to see sort of like a brutalist, really 1930s fascist architecture style here. You see the really wide streets, the really big buildings meant to demonstrate power, right? Makes sense. A lot of their fashion, and especially Effie, is really based on like the 40s aesthetic and some 40s actors and things like that. But the score is hitting a crescendo here as well from where we ended last week. We're getting where we got that establishing shot as the train was pulling in, and it's like this really swelling brass heavy score as we're getting into this.
Yeah, it's
the CGI is okay, but yeah,
we'll forgive some bad CGI.
yeah.
It's interesting too. Like you see this very brutalist, very like corner heavy, sharp line, pan shot, but then they're surrounded by mountains. This it emphasizes that the capital is very isolated in that you have to go through a tunnel through the mountains to arrive there. Like the panning shot, you can barely see the sky. It's almost exclusively mountains.
Yeah, you can definitely see in the background. You're right. There is hardly any sky there, and that really helps with the belief that it's Salt Lake City, right? Because they are in the Rockies, and a lot of that will have to do with how does the capital win the war where we get the Treaty of the Treason from? It has a lot to do with their location, right?
Yes.
So
they were essentially able to Switzerland themselves.
Yeah, basically, exactly. But as that continues, we get more close-up shots of the Capitol citizens who are walking through all of this architecture. Again, it's mostly like funky hair and clothing, really bright clothing. Like we see, I was gonna say we see these pink dogs with their owners matching, which I think is such a great little touch. They're sitting out, they're relaxing, they're walking their dogs, a very different lifestyle. Like it's the hustle and bustle of the city compared to what we saw when we first entered 12, right? With that really slow Appalachian lifestyle, like the exact contrast of that.
Yeah, it's cool. There's no like home how to put this? No earthy tones used. It's all pinks and greens, but like the most intense green and the most intense blues. Whereas, contrasting it with what we've seen previously is a lot of just like browns. A lot of browns.
Yeah. A lot of natural colors in comparison to the unnaturalness of the Capitol. And even the score here, I was trying to like figure out what instruments they were using, because I did say it was like pretty brass heavy at the beginning, but at one point it will, when we're looking at the citizens, it kind of moves into like this unsettling score because they're using, I don't even know what the instrument is, but it's like unsettling because it's unnatural. It's not something you typically hear versus when we hear things about, we'll get to this later, but when we hear things about the districts, you get like more of a strings, right? Like more of a natural sounding instrument, which is a great contrast for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, I love how tech heavy the score is.
Hmm.
Anytime we're in the tribute center or down in the training center, it is very like um, like
Hmm.
it's all electronic sounds, but when we're in the woods or anything, you get strings and even some vocals.
Yeah, very interesting. And we get, the look at the Capitol, and then we're going to cut back to a familiar scene, which is the interview scene from the very first scene that we got a couple of weeks ago for us now. But it was essentially the opening moment of the film. And it is Caesar Flickerman again asking, "What do you think about this year's crop of recruits?" before cutting to see them at the stage. And he's asking, "Are there any surprises this year?" And Seneca is talking about how it's very hard to tell from a reaping, but I think this year is a very interesting mix. Yes, whenever you have a volunteer from an outlying district, that's not something you can ignore. And it cuts over to a shot of Katniss in the beauty center as he's talking about her, but really great, I think, to throw this interview moment back in there to really ease us back into the mindset of the Capitol.
Yeah, and we're back in the propaganda portion too. So this is what Candace is experiencing is a small bit of a very large, uh, like machine that's driving the whole story forward.
Yeah. And it's just interesting again to get them talking about it like, oh, there's a new roster for like a basketball team or any team, really, right? It's like, it's almost like video game esque, more so even because it's like, oh, new characters, new meta. Like, what are we interested in seeing come out with this patch, right? Is
Yeah, this
kind
is
of
a
what it
new
feels like.
season, new
Yeah,
gear.
yeah. So it's very like they're talking about avatars versus kids, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so I just love that they toss that in there. Obviously, this is something that we are not getting in the books, is like these extra views of the Capitol.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we're able to see more than just Katniss's point of view. It's particularly like it really pulls you into the whole world more that you can see more than just what Katniss is experiencing.
Yeah, and especially because she has a lot of thoughts that will like juxtapose each other in that she can understand the Capitol citizens are just kind of stupid and like buying into all this propaganda, and so she doesn't blame them for stuff, but also she hates them. So it's
Yeah.
hard when we're not in her head getting all of that commentary from her.
Yeah, and it's also helps with setting that sort of unsettled tone that is
Mm-hmm.
so needed because a lot of what we're going to see is a lot of action happening, and action's always fun to watch, Katniss going and shooting things and running around. Um, uh, but it's important to remind the audience and us that uh, this is all wrong. Like, we're cheering
Mm-hmm.
for Katniss, but it's like there's more going on here than just these games. This is much larger than a single year at the Hunger Games.
Right, exactly. But what we get next is we see Katniss in the beauty center. I think, do they call it the remake center in the book? I think.
I think so.
Yeah. But we see the Capitol workers again kind of walking around in all white, like we had previously seen them in the districts. The tributes are all dressed in light blue nightgowns. Just interesting because of the blue discussion we had last week, but probably not as relevant here. They're just in like hospital gowns essentially. And we're seeing Katniss being hosed down. She's looking very uncomfortable. We're cutting to a bunch of different shots of her in different positions, having her hair brushed. We get like these, what I would call dirty shots, right? So it's not a clean image of her, but the poles are in the way and you're getting all this weird light refraction. Really unsettling in Katniss's point of view, right? Of like what's happening around me. She can't even see it clearly. And we see the stylists with their creepily long, super thick eyelashes and colorful hair plucking her eyebrows, doing other things. And again, you're getting like a really unsettling score here. These are not natural sounds that are happening. They're all manufactured in that tech heavy kind of noise. And then we get the second hosing, close-ups of them like plucking at her hair, scrubbing her skin with machines. And then we get that wider shot of a couple of different tributes that are going through the same treatment. They're all laid out on medical looking tables, like they look almost like cadavers that are having work done on them. And Katniss's crew is in blue, so they stick out. We can tell that that's where she is amongst the crowd. And we get the rip of them waxing her, which is how the chapter opens. So I love that they kind of matched that in there. And she's watching her stylist as they prep more wax, whispering amongst each other, and she's immediately calling them out. She's like, "What's that? What's that? Like, what are you saying? What are you talking about?" And they're saying, "We're just saying we might need to hose you down again before we take you to Cinna." And they are looking at her like, "Oh, I can't believe she is even speaking," which is, yeah. So it really puts us in this mindset of they're really seeing her as just like beneath them.
Yeah, it's interesting. This contrasts relatively heavily with the book, not in so much the experience, but in the prep team themselves. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the 6-inch heels to hose her down. Those heels were incredible. And that's very accurate to the book. But in the book, the prep team is chatty. They're having fun. Like, this is exciting for them. They're more like Effie, where they're just, blah, blah, blah. They're not talking to Katniss. They're sort of talking around Katniss. They're not really like connecting with her. So there's the portion where it says like, I know I should be embarrassed, but they're so unlike people that I'm no more self-conscious than if a trio of oddly colored birds were pecking around my feet. It's so perfect, I think, for the book, where it's showing the Capitol is just completely kind of clueless. Like, the people running this machine fully believe it and are dedicated to it and are profiting from it, and like having like this is career growth for them. Whereas in the movie, they really show like the prep team does not talk to Katniss. They actually don't almost talk at all. They'd speak in whispers to each other, and they look at her with like truly disgust.
Yeah.
So like, whereas in the book, it's pity.
Yeah. Well, also it is a little bit like they just don't know how else to look at her other than the way they've been trained to look at her in the book. So I think it's really interesting because Katniss, she's talking about how, like the quote you read, that she doesn't see them as human, but they also say back to her, "Excellent. You almost look like a human being now." Like they're dehumanizing each other to each other's faces, essentially, right? And Katniss is like, "I force my lips up into a smile to show how grateful I am. Thank you," I say sweetly. "We don't have much cause to look nice in District 12. This wins them over completely." And later, she's like thinking to herself, "It's hard to hate my prep team. They're such total idiots. And yet, in an odd way, I know they're sincerely trying to help. Like they want her to win if she's assigned to them, because they're like, partially because they're like, we want the fame, we want the glory of our district being the one, our tribute being the one to win, but also because they are like, oh, we are helping in our own way."
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting contrast. I'll bring up the script again too. I know I've talked about it a few times and we're going to talk about it later, but they're talking amongst each other a lot more for sure in the script than they do in the final film. But one thing that they say that they didn't say in the book is they're like, "Oh, but we wish we had gotten our hands on Prim because she's so pretty and cute. Like it would have been so fun to like play dress up with her." Right, which I think would have been really interesting to have them toss that in there. So
horrifying! What a line!
Horrifying to think about.
Horrifying! I hate that so much.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be great, but oh my god.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's hard. It's like we don't get a lot of them in general. Like we'll see them throughout the movie in the background, but you're right, they won't get many more lines because it's hard to have people who are so casually cruel be understandable when you're just seeing them, right? We're not inside Katniss's head, so we're not going to get this moment when she's thinking like, "Oh, but they are trying to help," So we don't have this secondary thing of somebody trying to explain that to us, and so it's easier to just cut it out. Otherwise, the audience is probably just gonna be like, "Well, we just hate them," right?
Yeah, and the casual cruelty is shown through Effie with some of her remarks, but mostly also through Seneca, because we did just cut from that interview where he is being quite casually cruel in the way
Mm-hmm.
that he's discussing these candidates. So we don't need the prep team to sort of reinforce that, but they are a delight to see.
Yeah. And it's like we're going to get more of Effie. It's easier to focus on just Effie, and obviously she'll absorb the prep team when we get into Mockingjay, and she'll be like the conglomerate of all of them. But it's easier to get sympathy for her because we'll talk about it where she has moments where her mask is kind of slipping. But the other thing is, in the book they have her naked. She's not in a robe, so even less dignity, right? But this is a PG-13 film, so we're not gonna get that level of
That's
nudeness.
unnecessary. We
Yeah,
don't need that in a movie.
yeah. But then we're going to Cinna. We
Oh,
cut to Katniss laying down again on that medical looking gurney almost, but it's super harsh lighting. It's light beneath her, super harsh lighting above her. Cinna walks in and he doesn't introduce himself first. It's not what he does. The first thing he jumps into is, "That was one of the bravest things I've ever seen with your sister." He walks up and shakes her hands as if they're equals. And we're getting all this from like as if there's a security camera in the room kind of angle. And he walks up in all black, right, which is very unlike what we've seen in the rest of the Capitol. And then he introduces himself. "My name's Cinna." Katniss actually offers her name in return. And he said, "I'm sorry that this happens to you." This is when we get the first shot of his face because we've just been seeing him from behind this whole time. And we see that he has very little makeup on, doesn't look much like what the rest of the Capitol has clearly looked like in all these shots we've been getting. So it's nice that we got those shots just to get this contrast of what Cinna is going to look like. He has his gold eyeliner like he does in the book. And he is talking in what seems like a much less accented voice, which they also will note in the book. So I just think Lenny Kravitz is great here. We'll talk about him in a second. But he says, "I'm here to help you in any way that I can." He's leaning into her, but he's not really invading her space like Effie or the stylists do. He's giving her some space. "Most people just congratulate me. Well, I don't see the point in that." We get that the tribute parade is happening, and that's where they're going to show off, where she's going to make her introduction to the world. And Katniss asks, "So you're here to make me look pretty?" And he says, "I'm here to help you make an impression." Um, and we get that normally, they dress like coal miners and all this other stuff. And he's like, "I don't want to do that." He wants people to remember her so that she can get sponsors. Like he's here to help in that direction. And Katniss says, "Yeah, but I'm not very good at making friends." And I love Cinna's response here where he says, "I just think somebody that brave shouldn't be dressed up in some silly costume, now should they?" And he reaches out. This is the only time he'll kind of touch her. He'll gently touch her hair. Not so much in a violating manner, kind of more in a comforting gesture. It's reminiscent of like when Peeta will later touch her braid at the end of the games. But it's like a fatherly gesture. And we get the most vulnerable moment from Katniss with she responds, "I hope not." And she's trying not to cry. So, what a great scene. What a great intro. Lenny Kravitz, an amazing pick for this role.
yeah, it's this is the first character that just like walks in and immediately kind of breaks down Katniss's walls
Mm-hmm.
by being almost the exact opposite that she expects. I mean, I love the book where she's like, "Oh yeah, we're coal miners. Oh yep, no, we're definitely naked and covered in coal." And then it's like,
Yeah,
okay, no, we're good.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just he's just such a calming force in this whole scene and in everything that's happened. We've just started moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So taking this brief moment to be like, okay, Katniss, like you have at least she understands, she does have Cinna on her side. Like what he's
Yeah.
offering, she understands.
Yeah. And in the book, he still is like a little bit objectifying. Like he is seeing her naked and he's like circling around her. And she still is like, "I don't know if I can trust him." Katniss here is going to look at the meal that they're having and then she's going to try and equate it to what she could do in the district and how it would take her days to make even just a very poor imitation of the meal that they're currently having. And he's like, "Oh, you must think of us as despicable, right?" But this version of Cinna, Lenny Kravitz coming in and being a little bit older than what they describe in the books and being kind of that father figure, because Katniss obviously has that lacking in her life right now. We know that her dad has died. And also immediately making everything about her. Not about, "Oh, I want to do something cool with fashion. Oh, I want to like make a splash," which is kind of how it is in the book. He is like, "I'm sorry this happened to you." I'm sorry that you're going through this. I'm here to help you get sponsors so that you can survive. And Katniss just hasn't had that from anybody yet. And not from Peeta, not from, because I mean, Peeta probably would if he was given the chance, but she would misconstrue it if she could. But with this, there's no reason for her to misconstrue it, right? And there's a lot more opportunity for her to just immediately trust him. And we need that in the film because we need to establish, like, she has one person that she's willing to kind of be vulnerable around, and that's Cinna right now.
Yeah. Yeah, because we've lost Gale, so we lost that connection of comfort. Peeta is a threat question mark in her mind.
Yeah.
Haymitch is a disaster, and Effie is doing her best. So it's nice to have like one moment to give, Katniss in the movie particularly just a moment of like being real, because every other time that we see her, unless she's alone, she's putting on a face. She's putting on, she's assessing a threat and reacting to it.
Right. And in the books, that is kind of what she's doing with Cinna. She's like, okay, why would he ask for 12? Which we don't get in the movie that he asked for 12, but like, it seems kind of implied that he's coming in here like with determination that he thought what Katniss did was really brave. And so it's not like he's like, oh, I'm stuck with 12. Right. Like he's clearly like, oh no, this is what I want, exactly where I want to be. Right.
He's fired up. Oh boy.
Yeah. Not, the dad jokes.
Let's end it here. That's
it. Yeah. And also like, you really get how different he is from the Capitol because we've been showing so much of the Capitol. Like I was saying, he's wearing black. He doesn't have a lot of the crazy makeup on. And so that obviously makes it a lot easier for Katniss to be like, okay, he's like a person. Because she was just talking about how her prep team aren't people, right? And she's like, oh, he's like somebody I can actually interact with normally.
Yeah, and that is one downside of the mediocre CGI in today's standards, is that the Capitol citizens could look weirder, and then he would stick out even more. Here he just doesn't have crazy eyelashes, but the effect is still there.
Yeah. And he exudes a different kind of confidence than all these people that are trying to peacock, essentially, right, with all of their crazy colors. Yeah. So after that great scene with the two of them, we cut to the other tributes being prepped. Again, they're in a lot of extravagant colors. We're getting shots of, I think it's like Marvel and Kato and things like that. But then we also get our first glimpse of Rue.
Also, their costumes are so pretty. I like 11's costumes.
I know.
They go for
I do too.
Greek,
the little
Greek
blue. Yeah. It's so cute. But the camera starts on Thresh, and then it kind of like sees Rue, starts to pan away, and like pans back, almost as if we are Katniss doing a double take. Like, oh my god, she's so young, and she's standing next to Thresh, who is like a monster, huge, like bigger than almost anybody else in the area. And so you really notice, oh no, she's so young. It feels like we did the double take to notice her.
Yeah. Because have we seen Rue before in the movie?
No, this is our first look at her, I believe.
Because it's a reminder that, Prim's name being called is not a one-off event.
Right. Like other 12-year-olds are getting called. Because in the books, we have already seen Katniss watched all the reapings, which we talked about a little bit last week, but we didn't get that. But when she did watch them, she's like, oh no, I see this young girl and nobody volunteers for her, and my heart is like breaking for her. So it's, I think, important that this is kind of the way that they introduce her in the film to us, which is like, oh no, like double take. Who's that? Because we're going to get a lot more Rue here in a little bit. But then we get a wider shot of, we're seeing all the chariots and the horses. So we're seeing what's going to pull them out in the parade. And Cinna is talking to Katniss and Peeta, and he's promising them, this is safe. It's not real fire. You won't feel a thing. Peeta does not look convinced at all. He's like, it looks pretty real to me. And Cinna tells Katniss, don't be afraid. And she says, I'm not afraid. And it's like, you believe her because she's already trusting Cinna to be like, okay, if this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make an impression. We're going to make a big splash. And they are all in all black, right? Their suits are also standing out from all the different crazy colors of the other tributes. And they do up Katniss's hair a lot more. It's kind of like Queen Amidala style, Star Wars. But in the books, they try to leave her as plain as possible, just so that the fire is what really stands out. But yeah, they're getting ready to go out and be on fire. I think it's interesting, some of the differences here in the book. So
yeah, it's fun. Yeah, this whole parade is relatively different in the book, like, and some pretty key features, which we'll get into in just a moment. But yeah, it is interesting to have Peeta being like, I don't want to be set on fire, because as a baker, I'm sure he was constantly getting burned.
Yeah, and Katniss says that in the book, but Katniss is also just as afraid as Peeta. So like in the book, they're both like, I'll rip off your cape if you rip off mine. We do not trust Cinna that this is gonna work. And so it's a good little moment for them. And so there's this great quote from Katniss where she said, "Despite this morning's revelation about Peeta's character, I'm actually relieved when he shows up," because she's like so nervous about it. But I just think it's so funny.
It's so cute.
But yeah, we get a couple of different things. Like Cinna is also the one to kind of coin the girl who was on fire.
Yeah, in the book, it's very intentional. Like this is a symbol that he made on purpose. Whereas in the movie, he did do it on purpose, but yeah, he didn't put it out there. He didn't start that.
Right. And then the last thing is that he's also the one to tell them to hold hands and before they get out there. And I really like the change that we'll get to once we're actually in the parade. So we get all these great shots because in the book, right, we're just in Katniss's head. So she gets lit on fire and they send her out immediately. But what we get in the movie is we get to see how rowdy and excited the Capitol citizens are. We're getting all these shots of them waiting eagerly for the parade of tributes to begin. We're hearing the Capitol theme play through the speakers for all the people that are waiting around for this to begin. And we get this great shot of the camera sort of like zooming in, past down the runway, essentially. Again, the CGI is okay enough here to pass for what we're doing. But then we get it up to a zooming shot of the Capitol logo. It zooms around the podium. And we get our very first look at President Snow at the wonderful Donald Sutherland.
No. Another man who sticks out for not having a lot of nonsense on his head and or face.
Exactly. Yeah, like he's just there in a regular suit. He's an older, distinguished gentleman, and everybody else around him is like acting all excited for the parade to start, and he is just sitting there, right? Like he's very still in this sea of like excited children, essentially. Like that's how I think of the Capitol citizens a lot.
Yeah, they look a lot like the ones that are sitting around him look a lot like the like bankers and Mary Poppins that start dancing around.
Oh yeah. I love that. But we get a cut to our announcers, Claudius Templesmith and Caesar Flickerman, who we've seen before when Katniss was watching them, but they're excitedly talking about how there's 100,000 people craning to get a glimpse of the tributes, and the sponsors who are looking to get a first look at the tributes. We see Haymitch in the crowd. We get a shot of him. And then, Caesar Flickerman is saying the importance of this moment cannot be overstated. Like, this is the moment. This is the kickoff. And we see the broadcast room. We get shots of it's snow and the crowd and the announcers are all up on their screens, and it pans down for us to see Seneca. And, he's saying first chariot on my account. And I'll say this. I work in broadcast. I've worked in broadcast for many years. That's exactly what it's like, except for instead of in a big, giant, round room, you're usually in like a really small, cramped, dark truck, which operates as your control room. But I've had directors who they stand there and they will point at you when it's your like turn to do stuff on broadcast.
That's so funny. I would love to see the version of this where Seneca Crane is in like on a truck with no AC, like behind the stand.
The truck that has all the wrong plugs for the country we're in. That's
yeah.
when we were traveling internationally. But like it's great too, the shot of the announcers, the casters, like overlooking, like I've had to build virtual sets like that for my casters where they're just like the whole thing is happening behind them. So I was really thrown back. Every time I watch it now, I'm like, oh God, people hate watching broadcast TV with me now because I'm like, oh my God, this shot is great. That's a good camera. That was a bad cut. You know,
oh, they were a little delayed on this. It's so funny. Yeah, watching the Oscars, I was like, oh, Kelsey would have hated that. Oh, Kelsey would have.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't tune into the whole thing. I was like, I would no, absolutely not.
Wasn't worth it. But
I watched one tennis match where they didn't font Anna Wintour in the back, and I was like, I'm gonna kill somebody. they fonted literally every other person around her, including Bon Jovi, but not Anna Wintour. And I was like, guys, okay, whatever. I gotta move on.
It's fine, I guess.
Anyway,
no, I love these shots because it's like, if you don't work in broadcast television, it's like, ooh, fun. But it's fun to see that even Snow is playing part of the pageant. Like that he has his own camera, and like the people we're seeing on screen specifically, like that are focused, are playing as much of a pageant as the tributes are themselves. And it's interesting to see like, oh, we get this view of Snow from this camera, but then we do get some cuts that are clearly more like not in the Capitol camera, I would say, like in the movie camera.
Right.
Where we get like off from his side, where we see when he first notices the fire. So it's kind of fun to set up that like broadcast bit, but also kind of cut away from it a little bit. And you can tell as the audience member, you're like, oh, face on, that's clearly broadcast. Face off or like off to the side, that's clearly like actual movie. Like we're getting the real Snow, or, you know, the Snow that's not being broadcast.
Right. And that's going to be really important once we get there for sure. But as he's counting down 15, 14, first chariot, we get shots of the crowd. They're standing to applaud as the first chariots come rolling out. With the casters, we're watching them as they literally turn around in their chairs to watch. Like they're just as excited to see what's coming out next, you know? There they are, the tributes. It's the most exciting part. Like they can't wait. And we see them all going past. I'm not going to go through all of their outfits. Maybe we'll do that in a different episode sometime, because I've always wanted to try and figure out what were they trying to match up with. Because some of those costumes
the
are
pink
pretty funky.
Crazy outfit that you see very briefly. I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah, Marvel, Jack Quaid's very first role.
Rough. Yeah, I mean, green. Yeah, rough for the character. Great for him.
Yeah. But anyways, so we see some of them coming out. They're rolling down. Some of them are waving. You know, most of them are trying to look brave. And we get more kind of threaded shots of Haymitch in the crowd, not clean shots again. And he's looking really uncomfortable or nervous. You see like more tech of the Capitol where they're using like these screen magnifying glasses to like look closer, which I thought was really interesting. And we are getting more shots of President Snow, like you were talking about, like as if he's noticing Katniss for the first time in the back. And this is when we get the announcer saying, like, behind them, we have 2 power plant workers. And what is that in the background?
Yeah, I love, too, that Snow is the first to notice them.
Yes, for many reasons. I think that was a really interesting choice for them to do that. Because as you're like, what is Snow looking at so intently? And then the announcers start to notice what's going on, and which means the crowd is going to slowly start to notice what's going on. And we get a hard cut from him staring down to an extreme close-up of Katniss's face and eyes. So I love that immediately jumps from him to her. And we get the slow pan out to show her and Peeta on fire. And we did not see them being lit on fire, but we heard them talking about it. So this is the first time we're getting to see it.
Yeah. Snow's immediate frown is the perfect setup for, and that's also kind of the first cut we get of quote unquote real Snow with the camera. So his immediate, you're like, oh, yeah, this is a problem.
And as she's coming out in this look, it's like to the swelling of the triumphant Capitol music with the really loud brass and the like really intense, like, she's here, she's arrived, you know. And Katniss is looking into the crowd with a bit of confusion and disgust because, man, they are going rabid. Some of the shots of the people in the audience are like, oh my God, you're right. They do not seem human. Like, they don't seem real. The amount of excitement that they're showing for this.
Yeah, shout out to the extras and the makeup and
Mm-hmm.
costuming team, because I think I suspect usually how they do these crowd shots is they have the same people just sort of move around and they do a few shots and then they'll just CGI stitch them together.
Yeah.
But it's likely that these extras changed costumes several times and like changed eyelashes and stuff. It's wild what they were probably like the production behind getting these extras all ready and all capitalized for this moment for them to just go mad.
Yeah, there's like, I think there has to be at least over 100 extras that they
Oh my
dressed
god.
and did makeup on. Obviously, they do copy and paste them for the looking at the super wide shots of 100,000 people, but that's like when you're not getting close ups of what they look like.
Yeah.
Um, but when you're in the crowd, you're like, oh yeah, every single person is done up and is super unique from one another, as is their costumes. So I they don't talk about that in the behind the scenes. I would love to look up more about it.
Yeah, that just like the production of just that alone seems so complicated.
Yeah, yeah. Like this is taking up all their budget already, you know?
Yeah.
um but this is where she catches a glimpse of herself in the screen and she like looks so taken aback. She clearly wasn't expecting to see how she ended up looking, and Peeta is looking at her, right? He's not looking up at the screens. And this is when he tries to take her hand, which Katniss immediately snatches away and is like, "What are you doing?" Gives him the most angry look ever. And he's trying to convince her like, "Come on, they'll love it." And she finally allows him to grab her hand and thrust their combined hands into the air as Katniss takes a breath, trying to breathe it all in as the crowd goes even more crazy once they do this. And they're throwing flowers at their feet. We're getting shots of it. We're hearing coins, like literally being thrown, like money is being thrown at her. And Caesar is saying over them, now you see that? I love that. Two young people holding their hands up saying, I'm proud I come from District 12. We will not be overlooked. I love that. People sure are going to be paying attention to them right now. And it's like, yeah, they are.
Yeah, it's so cool to have Peeta leading this scene. Where Katniss,
Mm-hmm.
she's off her foot, and it reinforces like Peeta can read people. He is such a good
Yeah.
people person, and so he's not necessarily in his element here, but he understands this conversation. He understands the conversation between the capital and the district here, where like he's like, hey, like they want to see like excitement. They want to see this like unite and uh but then, you know, Katniss is off her game. And later we'll see Katniss be on her game and Peeta like not understanding the conversation between the actual game side of things.
Right. And also because it's interesting in that him knowing how to play the crowd. We talked about this last week, how he is the one that really will break the mold. He is the reason they're going to get out of the games. But part of that is because he is so focused on making people like Katniss, right? He could have just been like, yeah, I'm from District 12. But he's like, no, the goal here is to like make people really like her. And so that focus is really him understanding how to play the game for Katniss's survival, because he doesn't know how to play for his own survival, which is all Katniss knows how to do. So that'll be the reverse once we're actually in the arena. And you know, this is the very first time when he does this with when they hold up their hands in the book that she feels hope that maybe she could win because like people are chanting her name and she's getting really into it. She's like blowing kisses at them and like doing all this other stuff in the book. And it's the first time she feels like a little bit of power in this moment. So I think it's even better that Peeta is the one in the film to give her that moment of power versus Cinna being like, oh, here's like something that we can like manipulate, right?
Yeah, and it's cool too in the movie they just hold their hands up and like look straight ahead. Which is read particularly in the movie the way that it's like the movie's talking about it is an act of rebellion. Um
Right.
uniting uniting victors, sorry, uniting tributes,
Right.
instead of just being like, hey, eventually we'll have to kill each other, which is Katniss's only thoughts. But
Right. And she will think it here momentarily when we get there.
absolutely, she's like, well, that was a nice moment. We'll have to kill each
Yeah.
other later. But
Yeah.
it is cool that Peeta leads this rebellion moment. Like, he is engaged in rebellion as much as Katniss is in her own way as well.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And then we get a cut back to Seneca with his in-ear, which is, when how you communicate for broadcast. And he's watching the two of them on screen. Earlier, we were seeing all the split screens, and now they're the only thing on the screen. Like, this is their main focus. But he's saying, and we're ready for you, President Snow. And he points to somebody, which is the cue to go ahead and cut to Snow. So we get to Snow, and he gets up. We see that he was sitting during this entire presentation. He did not stand when Katniss came out, and to the excitement of the announcers, he did not join in on any of that. And everybody around him is standing up and cheering. So then he slowly gets up. He walks up to the podium. We see as all the tributes are now coming in to sort of form a semicircle in front of the podium. And Katniss and Peeta are kind of right in the middle as the last ones to pull in. So, of course, they are right within his eye line, right? And we get the swelling of the Capitol theme on the score again as he's approaching the podium, and then he's going to quiet sort of everybody down. And the fire extinguishes on their outfit as the music comes to an end, and they both look shocked. They're like, "Oh my gosh, the fire just like turned off."
Oh my god. Yeah.
And we get his welcome, tributes, we welcome you. And it's such a commanding voice. It's happening over the speakers. We're getting it in the really echoey, like kind of how you would in a stadium. And we get Snow looking directly down at the tributes from his position of power. And we get a cut to Katniss looking directly back up at him. And she looks pissed.
It looks pissed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
Yeah.
there's the Katniss we know.
Yeah. And he's saying, "We salute your courage and your sacrifice." And he's like pausing for applause with all that. And he gives a little bit of a smirk here, right? Because he knows. He's like, they're not courageous. And this is me sacrificing them, right? And Katniss is still glaring angrily up at him at the podium. And Peeta is looking at her like, oh God, she's mad. We need to like calm down. And she finally notices him and turns to Peeta. And that's what finally breaks her connection, looking up at Snow. And then he finishes with, "And we wish you happy Hunger Games, and may the odds be ever in your favor," before the chariots start to pull away on their own. And I just love how he says these lines, which we've been saying in Effie's voice for the last couple of weeks when we do our little intro. But he also is similar to Cinna in that he does not have the same kind of capital accent as the rest of his citizens. So I've always thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and we've now just started on screen the conversation between Katniss and Snow. A lot of the cuts we're not really including Peeta in this conversation. It is Katniss and Snow, Katniss and Snow, Katniss and hey, Peeta's like, hey, maybe take a breather. And then
Yeah.
that's when she
He's
breaks.
like, oh no. Yeah. He's like, you look mad, and we need to keep up with the joyous moment we just had as we were riding in on these chariots, right?
Yeah.
He's like, this is not the time for a bit of rebellion, right? They're not still holding hands and like holding them up in the sky. So yeah, the dialogue did begin when Katniss volunteered. She just didn't know it yet. And now she's like a willing participant or a knowing participant in this moment between her and Snow.
Yeah, she's identified the enemy, which is the guy standing at the podium 1,000,000 feet up in the air. The actual logistics of this stadium are fascinating, but but yeah, it's interesting how this sort of establishing how the movie language of the way that the shots are shown establishes this connection where it's Katniss versus Snow. And we won't get that really until Catching Fire, but we've already started setting these like grounds.
Yeah, we are going to get it so much more in the movies. Even this
Oh.
moment, like Katniss does not notice him at all. He's like the president, a small, thin man with paper white hair, gives the welcoming speech. That's it. In the book, that is literally the only thing we're going to get about Snow. I'm pretty sure. I think like she might mention him one or two more times, maybe before they go into the games. Maybe not even then, though. I think this might literally be the only mention we get of Snow in the
Oh,
book.
interesting.
And
I guess in the book, she's more focused on taking out literally the people trying to kill her, which was the
yeah.
tributes.
Well, in this moment, she's like, oh man, they're really paying attention to us. Like, people really, she's noticing because they can see screens of the broadcast. She's like, we're getting all the attention. Like, they cut to Snow and then they cut to each tribute, but then they land on us and they stay on us because we're still on fire.
Yeah.
They have not put out the fire. They're still like the most bright thing. They're taking all of the attention away on the broadcast. And she notices that. So she's not thinking about Snow at all in that moment in the book. And we're soon going to get a lot more of Snow in the movie because not this episode, but in like a week or two, we're going to talk about the first Rose Garden scene. And I can't wait. I'm so excited to talk about that because it's just so different from, it adds so much to the book.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love any glimpse we get of Snow that's new or separate from the book, which is all of them in this first book.
Yeah. And I'm excited because we'll talk maybe in a different episode. We'll do a special one where we read the Donald Sutherland letter that inspired all of this additional Snow that we're getting in the movies. So we'll get there. We'll get there. I can't wait. But anyways, the chariots, they pull away. We see a bunch of the tributes again with their own stylists, kind of, they're helping them out of the chariots and things like that. And Cinna is walking up quickly and happily saying, that was amazing. And we get Effie excitedly, we are all anyone is going to be talking about, as she walks up with Haymitch as well.
I love,
I
do think it was a good decision to put out the fire for the visual, like the visual storytelling of the movie, where, because that would have been so distracting when we cut to Katniss and cut
when
to
we
Snow,
need
cut
to focus on
Katniss and
Snow in that
Yeah,
moment.
but I do wish we got like Effie running up with a fire extinguisher because like we haven't established a prep team, so obviously who would do it? Effie.
Yeah. Well, the other person who's there is Portia. She's there in a lot of these scenes. We will just never get her named, and unfortunately, she doesn't get any lines. But I love her look. I think that they did a really good job with it.
Yeah, she looks great.
Yeah, but I love that they felt the need to throw in this joke from the book because even though they're not still on fire, they're Katniss is like, "Are you sure you should be near an open flame?" And in the book, right, it's Katniss and Peeta are joking about it, like, oh, we don't want Haymitch near us with an open flame. But I love that instead what they're doing is they're making Katniss give sass to Haymitch in this moment instead, which I think is wonderful. But he definitely seems more sober than we've probably seen him yet in the film. He's very dressed up, again, in blue. And
definitely not showered. That is key.
Yeah. Well, his hair is never washed, it seems.
Yeah.
They've cleaned up the rest of him, but he's like not the hair. But he's trying to joke back with them, right? But then he catches sight of some of the other tributes and he interrupts himself. We get our first focus on Cato, who we saw earlier in the parade, but he's now looking hyper focused on their little group. And so Haymitch says, okay, let's take this upstairs, like we don't need to be seeming all chummy, I guess, in front of the weirdo who we don't yet know as a career, but we will soon. And Effie excitedly grabs both Peeta and Katniss physically because she constantly is violating their space like all the time.
Yeah, I mean, love Effie, but oh my god.
Yeah.
She represents the Capitol in all of its ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love this, like, Cato, I like that they dressed him up like literally a Greek god, like very Zeus-like. I think the outfit is kind of boring, but I like what they were doing with it. And then also this actor just like eyes locked, looking like very furious that they took his spotlight.
Yeah, and Katniss is thinking about that in the books too. She's like, oh man, everybody else is going to hate us because we took all the attention away from them, right?
Oopsies.
So, yeah. And then the next biggest difference we're going to get here is that this is when Peeta and Katniss would normally flirt, quite a bit, or Peeta would flirt with Katniss, where hold on, I've got to read the whole thing because it's just too good. But he's talking about how he was nervous, and Katniss is saying, "I'm sure no one noticed," and he says, "I'm sure they didn't notice anything but you. You should wear flames more often," he says. "They suit you." And then he gives me a smile that seems so genuinely sweet, with just the right touch of shyness. That unexpected warmth rushes through me. A warning bell goes off in my head. Don't be so stupid. Peeta is planning how to kill you, I remind myself. He is luring you in to make you easy prey. The more likable he is, the more deadly he is. But because two can play at this game, I stand on tiptoe and kiss his cheek right on the bruise. And this is the bruise that Haymitch gave him because he punched him in the face. So yeah, anyways, we don't get any of that detailing in the movie, but we're going to get sort of this dynamic in a different way, right?
Yeah, I
As we
think this
continue
would
along.
be really weird to throw in here because we just had Katniss literally rip her hand away from Peeta, and then we cut
Right.
to her kissing his bruise. Like, that would have been really weird.
Yeah, and
It's
without the
hard.
context of her being like, I'm playing this weird game that Peeta seems to be playing, you know?
Yeah, she's playing chess with on like 4D chess on a different level, and Peeta's just like, "Hey, girl."
Yeah. He's like, I'm flipping a coin. I'm not even like playing any kind of game.
No.
I literally just genuinely think this about you. Yeah,
It's
and
so cute.
I think the fact that he initiates the hand holding is kind of enough to sort of get this different dynamic around, which is again that he's like, oh, we're a team, we're like doing this stuff like together, like, you know,
Yeah, and
it gives a
he's the
different
one
side to his
reaching out.
personality. Yeah,
Yeah, he's
exactly.
always the one reaching out. Katniss very rarely reaches out to him.
Yeah. So then they are heading up to the apartment, and Effie is explaining the apartments, how they're working, how they work, how they'll have the penthouse as they approach the
I
elevator.
love the penthouse line. She's like, "Oh my god," which is my guess is that they get the top because they're the most likely to run. So,
You know, that's not untrue, but also literally just because it's 1 through 12.
yeah. They're like, we're not being creative on this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Effie being like, "You get the penthouse. Oh my god," as we cut to this crazy apartment, and then all these very silent, sort of spooky people hanging out inside, just standing there waiting.
Yeah. And unlike the train this time, Effie, once the elevator doors open, she leads the way as they're like looking around in wonder. Katniss's mouth is literally hanging open. And she's like, I know. Like, just come on. And she tells them to go clean themselves up before dinner. So we'll talk about those creepy people in a minute, but because we later get some better shots of them. But we cut to Katniss alone for the first time in a while, and she's in her flowy yellow tank top that sort of matches her room, like some of the themes of the color in her room. And we've talked about, you know, color matching before here. But she's looking around, she sits on the bed, and we get that same shot that we did of when she first got on the train of her like feeling the material beneath her of the bed. And the score is back to being really unsettling. After it's odd because it's so jarring because we just got off of the Capitol theme of the parade where it's so triumphant and it's so loud. And then we've switched to this just like really odd score in the background. And she starts changing the sort of window screen thing, whatever we want to call it. And she's flipping through, and the score will change up once she lands on the woods. This is where we hear more of the strings and kind of a more natural sound. Sound less uncanny and kind of more nostalgic almost sound. And she stands up and she walks towards it with a moment of quiet reflection for her home after the insanity of where we've been at the Capitol. It's kind of needed for both her and for the viewer after all the craziness that we just went through. And I think Jennifer Lawrence just does such a great job here with no words spoken, just all the emotion on her face, though, that you can really feel that she just wants to go home.
Yeah, and you know, we've seen her sort of be triumphant in this parade and like stick out, and like technically the Capitol's like, wow, she's like really winning these games. Like, she volunteered, she is incredible in this parade. Like, she's building so much of story. entirely an accident, truly. But I love this quiet moment. I will say that when she first uses the remote, I'm like, girl, you don't know how to use that. Like,
Yeah, she's literally just tapping away, and it
yeah.
somehow works.
You're like, sure, whatever. But I love the score in this moment. I love her just standing there because we don't get during the movie version of the reaping, we don't get that moment of her looking at the hills and thinking like, I could have run, like I could have gone, but no, I'll stay for Prim. I think this is almost a stand-in for that. One, it gives us time to pause and breathe before we start launching into this whole training sequence that's gonna just like ramp it up. You always need those moments to breathe. But it shows that like she could have run, she could have survived in the woods, but then we literally see her refocus and be like, okay, we're back on, and we immediately cut into training. Or I
Yeah.
believe almost immediately cut into the training. Like we are now,
Yeah.
as soon as she refocuses, we are back in the games. We are back playing the game. And we're off to the races. But that brief
Yeah.
moment of like, that's where she's home. She's nothing here. It's all temporary. It's all weird. She's solely out of her element, but she gets this brief glimpse before we get thrown into some other nonsense.
Yeah. And you're right, they do cut straight into training after this, which is a big change from the book because we're going to get a couple of big swaps here, but we're going to have to take a moment to breathe before this other nonsense you were talking about because we've already been talking for an hour and a half and we haven't even gotten to the A-boxes yet. So we've got a lot more to cover in this section.
I cannot believe it.
It's
Yeah,
wild.
we're a little new to figure out where to break these off. There's so much to cover in some of these sections. They seem so small when you look at it, but or when you think back, but actually looking at it, there's a lot to look at.
Yeah. And I think we end up having a lot we realize that connects and that we can talk about. So not just our notes, but good conversation. So it's a good thing. But anything else about this week's sort of section that we've gone over that maybe we didn't touch on? It felt a little
Oh,
easier this week, more like we were on beat for beat.
yeah, this the actual plot, the overall plot was beat for beat. And it moved
Yeah.
together. Like last week was kind of all over the place because the book meandered and the movie will take some and leave some. But here it was essentially beat for beat with some extras from the movie, which is always nice to see. I love when we get a pull out
Yeah.
of Katniss's view and get some of her supporting characters.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about the adaptations is getting to see these other points of view. And I think one of your favorite moments, like the betting scene, is coming up. So I'm really excited to get a look at that next week.
Very, yes. I love being able to tell this story in both writing and or visual and in written, as we get to see more in both experiences. So I'm very excited to pull out of Katniss's view and see what else is around.
Yeah, can't wait. So join us next time as we do talk about A-boxes. We will get there. And we go to the Tribute Center. We're going to discuss the careers. We're going to return to the bread scene, get a closer look at Rue, and then Katniss is going to shoot an apple as we wrap up Chapter 8. So we will see you all in the next one.
Good luck. Hi, I think it's still recording. Defish, you have any thoughts to share? Share your thoughts, baby. Say hi. Oh, guess he's not chatty.